When Final Fantasy X released in 2001, video game developers had already been incorporating voice acting for some time. By working around the storage limits of CDs, games like Resident Evil and Metal Gear Solid had shown what was possible, but there were mixed results, as not every company adapted well to this new method of delivery. Perhaps due to the scale of their games, Square were apprehensive to take this leap, and to make sure they wouldn't replicate the mistakes of others, they assigned a significant amount of budget in this area. This enabled them to cast Hollywood actors like Alec Baldwin and Donald Sutherland in lead roles for Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, and they had planned to adopt a similar approach with Final Fantasy X. But, as we covered within our recent Final Fantasy X Facts video, one of the big decisions made by Squaresoft was to instead cast lesser known actors in the lead roles so that the focus would be on the characters as opposed to the person playing the character. Given that Squaresoft knew that the inclusion of voice acting in a Final Fantasy game would be a huge deal within the entertainment industry, it was a risky decision. But Jack Fletcher, who was an experienced voice director, knew that there was plenty of talented voice actors out there, even if they weren't household names, and he had faith that they would be able to deliver on what was a very ambitious script. Looking back, the decision paid off. James Arnold Taylor became Tidus, and there was considerable praise for the performances that were delivered on a wider scale. The only real criticism about the voice acting was that the character models themselves were a bit too wooden in comparison. With it now being almost 20 years since that original release, we figured it would be nice to take a look back at the cast to see what life was like for them then as voice actors in the build-up to the game, and what they've accomplished in their time since. And what better place to start than with James Arnold Taylor, who played Tidus. Squaresoft knew that they needed to cast a voice actor who could showcase Tidus' lively personality, and they felt that James Arnold Taylor would be able to deliver this. At the time, Taylor had appeared in quite a few voice acting roles, like Red Noah in the English dub of Nadia, The Secret of Blue Water, and Team in Daystraga, but they were quite minor.
Nothing escapes these blades.
It meant landing the lead role of Tidus in Final Fantasy X was pretty huge in terms of both its stature, but also the size of the script, which Taylor shared in a video on his personal channel. It must have been pretty daunting, but Taylor showed everyone what he could do when given a leading role. After Final Fantasy X, Taylor reprised his role as Tidus numerous times in games like Dissidia and World of Final Fantasy, and even rolled back the years for the Final Fantasy X audio drama. He also voiced Shuyin in Final Fantasy X-2 and provided voices for smaller NPCs in Final Fantasy XIII. Outside of this, Taylor has had a wide-reaching impact on video games, animation, anime, and movies. For example, Taylor replaced Mikey Kelly as Ratchet after the first game, and he has been the voice of the Lombax ever since, appearing most recently alongside legends like Sylvester Stallone and John Goodman. Taylor also voiced Gabriel Logan in Siphon Filter, and even filled Johnny Depp's shoes in Kingdom Hearts 2, as well as the Pirates of the Caribbean video games that were released in 2006. Taylor also landed the role as Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars The Clone Wars, which he performed in for 6 seasons and will reprise for the upcoming reboot on Disney+. Such has been his popularity within this role, Taylor has also served as the host of many Star Wars conventions. He's also voiced Johnny Test, and in recent years has become one of the more consistent voice actors of The Flash, as well as stepping into the shoes of many other Marvel characters.
Come, there is universe to be saved, huh?
For the role of Yuna, the casting directors were looking for someone who could portray her quiet strength, and in Hetty Burris they felt that they had found the perfect match. At this point in her career, Burress had been appearing in quite a few movies like Foxfire, where she appeared in a lead role alongside Angelina Jolie. She had also been a lead character in the TV show called Boston Common, and had also featured in MTV's Club Dead video game alongside Nick Offerman.
But I'm the President of the United States!
But the casting of Yuna represented her first foray into the realm of voice acting.
It would be so easy to let my fate just carry me away.
In the years that followed, Burress also voiced Agrius Oaks in Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions, and provided voices for smaller NPCs within Final Fantasy XIII too, but voice acting didn't ever become a consistent gig. Burress did appear in Valkyria Chronicles 1 and 2 as Bridget Stark and Chloe Bixson, but she instead chose to focus her career on TV and film. This saw Burress appear as a regular on Season 5 of ER, appearing as a regular character in Southland, and having numerous guest appearances on shows like House, Lie to Me, and Criminal Minds. The casting of Auron was interesting because he was a much older character than the others featured within the game, and he was well travelled, acting as the guiding hand.
As long as she is willing to face sin, all else is her concern.
To fulfill this role, they decided to cast Matt McKenzie, an experienced voice actor who had also appeared in The Spirits Within as Major Elliot. In his varied career up until that point, McKenzie had provided voiceovers for anime dubs like Twilight of the Dark Master and Biohunter, but Auron was his first and last role within the realm of video games. After portraying Auron, McKenzie has appeared in a few TV shows like 24, Veronica Mars and Mad Men, and has performed in plenty of theatre productions. Wakka and Kimahri were quite different characters in more ways than one, and Squaresoft were no doubt curious to see what auditions would look like for both roles. But after listening through, it was decided that one actor had nailed his audition for both roles, John DiMaggio. DiMaggio had been doing voiceover work for over 10 years at this point, and had just landed his first major TV role as the voice of Bender in Futurama.
No, wait! I'm the good Santa! I've got toys!
Providing the voices for Wakka and Kimahri only served to show his versatility, and DiMaggio has gone on since to become one of the most recognisable actors within the world of voiceover. Sticking with Final Fantasy, DiMaggio appeared in Final Fantasy XII as the voice of Miguelo and Gilgamesh, and he then reprised the role of Gilgamesh for his appearance in Final Fantasy XIII-2's DLC. Outside of that, DiMaggio has ended up landing prominent roles across various strands of entertainment. Within video games, he's well known as being the voice of Marcus Phoenix in the Gears of War franchise, and within animation, he's also known as the voice of Jake the Dog in Adventure Time and Dr. Draken in Kim Possible. In more recent times, those who have watched Disenchantment may have recognised DiMaggio as the cantankerous King Zog.
Well, get to it!
With Lulu, Square had created a character who came across as quite mature and confident in herself, but despite this, in literal terms, she wasn't much older than Yuna. It was an interesting blend of traits, and after weighing up their options, they decided to cast Paula Tiso in the role. Tiso had already gained experience working with Japanese scripts after landing roles in Gene Shift and Burn Up Excess, and her performance as Lulu was very memorable, not least because of this scene.
The teachings state that we can exercise sin with complete atonement.
Since Final Fantasy X, Tiso chose to focus more of her efforts on voice acting within video games. She reprised the role of Lulu in Final Fantasy X-2 and was cast as Jill Nabat in Final Fantasy XIII. She also provided the voice for Laughing Octopus in Metal Gear Solid 4. In more recent times, Tiso voiced Camilla and Orochi in Fire Emblem Fates, Duchess, Ella Ames and Geraldine Fitzsimmons in Fallout 76, and will be reprising the role of Sylvia Christel in No More Heroes 3, a role she's held since the original game. Rikku was designed to be pretty much the antithesis of Yuna, and to deliver this, Squaresoft knew that they would need someone who could be bold, brash, and kind of obnoxious, while also coming across as adorable and cute. They no doubt received a ton of auditions for this role, but the one that really stood out was from a veteran voice actor called Tara Strong. Unlike many of the other cast members, Tara Strong had already landed a number of high-profile roles before being cast as Rikku in Final Fantasy X. Within Rugrats, Strong voiced Dill Pickles, but she also voiced Hip and Hop Cooper in the Mario Brothers animated show, Kylie Griffin in Extreme Ghostbusters, Batgirl in The Adventures of Batman, and Bubbles in Powerpuff Girls. She had also been nominated for an Annie Award for Best Voice Acting in a Feature Production, which she lost to Eartha Kitt. Needless to say, Strong brought a lot of professionalism and experience to Final Fantasy X, and given that video game voice acting was still having some teething problems, it was very welcome. Such was the strength of her performance as Rikku that when Strong reprised her role for Final Fantasy X-2, she won the first ever Interactive Achievement Awards for outstanding performances in a video game. And after winning the award, Strong has continued to flourish in her career. According to Behind the Voice Actors, she has now voiced 1,198 separate characters, and some of the more notable ones have been Ben Tennyson in Ben 10, Raven in Teen Titans, Timmy Turner in Fairly Odd Parents, Penny in the Inspector Gadget reboot, Paz in the Metal Gear Solid franchise, and more often than not, she's appeared as Harley Quinn.
What are you looking at?
When it came to adding fuel to the ever-evolving narrative, Seymour was the perfect antagonist. He was self-entitled, annoying, and had plenty of baggage.
Hadn't you heard?
And they needed a voice to reflect each of these traits, as well as the power he wielded and the venom he held deep inside. Having been impressed with his audition, Alex Fernandez was cast in the role. He was familiar with voiceover work, having lent his voice to the Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego video game that was released in 1985, but also because of appearances on TV shows like Spawn and Pet Shop of Horrors.
Nice try, happy boy. Now where's the owner?
Fernandez delivered a commanding performance as Seymour, but since the release of Final Fantasy X, his voice acting work has been sporadic. He did appear in Final Fantasy XIII, as so many others did, to provide voiceover for smaller NPCs, and although he has appeared in numerous video games, it's often been in a similar vein. For example, he provided additional voices for Just Cause, Star Wars The Old Republic, and Call of Duty Black Ops. Fernandez has instead chosen to focus his efforts on TV, and he's managed to land recurring roles in shows like Commander-in-Chief, Dallas, Devious Maids, Killer Woman, and True Detective. Alongside Seymour, acting as the more subtle antagonist was Jecht. Similar to Auron, he was much older than the rest of the cast, had a rather gruff personality, and served as a motivation for Tidus to carry on. The casting of this particular role was crucial, as the voice actor needed to display numerous emotions due to the journey Jecht goes through, and so they turned to an already established voice actor called Gregg Berger. Prior to his casting as Jecht, Berger had made quite a name for himself following roles like Oddie in Garfield, Grimlock in Transformers, Agent K in the Men in Black animated series, and as the Grumble in Real Monsters.
That's enough. Let's get her out.
It showed that Berger was very versatile, and he used all of his talent to produce a memorable performance. After Final Fantasy X, Berger hasn't sought the spotlight that much. He did get cast as the Pain in Metal Gear Solid 3 and as Captain Blue in Beautiful Joe, but outside of reprising his older roles, Berger has instead provided additional voices, something he did in Final Fantasy XIII-2, Lightning Returns and Final Fantasy XV, but also in movies like Despicable Me 3 and Inside Out. In addition to the main characters, there were a whole host of other voice actors who contributed to the success of Final Fantasy X, but I'm going to lead out with a fun connection you may not be aware of. Tom Kenny, who voiced Rin, is also the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants. But outside of that, he's Heifer in Rocko's Modern Life and has just been recast as the voice of Spyro, having seen 5 voice actors try their hand at the role since his last performance in 2002. And with that anecdote, we're at the end of our list. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed learning about the careers of the voice actors who helped to make Final Fantasy X such an immersive and emotional experience. If you'd like us to cover other games like this, then please do let us know, and if you enjoyed it, then please do hit that like button and consider subscribing to our channel to get notified when we publish new content. Alright guys, this is Daryl signing out. I'd like to extend a big thank you to all of our Patreon and YouTube membership supporters, and of course, a big thank you to everyone for watching this video. I'll see you all again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.